CNN has obtained two clips that were not featured in the documentary but have been shared with the January 6th committee. I want to play part of that. This is Donald Trump talking about trying to overturn the results in Georgia in an interview that you conducted with him on December 7th, 2020. Let's roll that.
They should open it up, verify the signatures. When you do, you'll see that all of those people that signed didn't have the right to vote. They were forgeries and other things. And all we want is that, and that's simple, or a special session. Let their legislature make the decision, because they're already largely on our side, because they see what happened in Georgia.
Now, to be clear, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, confirmed that Joe Biden was the winner. This is after 3 counts of the ballots. Your lawyer previously confirmed that you were cooperating with the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney's investigation, which you just mentioned. Is this part of what they want to know about?
Yes.
What specifically? Just about Trump trying to reach out and look at the signatures, or is there even more? I mean, we know that he was telling Raffensperger and others to find votes.
Yes, and that actually took place a month after, almost to a day, a month after that interview. And that interview took place sort of about 4 days or so after his Attorney General had said that there was no evidence whatsoever to support Trump's claims. So here is the sitting president of the United States already about a month after the election in the White House, in the diplomatic reception room, saying what he thinks needs to happen in order to achieve the result that he is trying to get to.
Do you have evidence that he knew it was a lie?
I mean, this is a question that's come up a lot. And I think that Donald Trump had been talking about the sanctity of the election in the United States of America back in 2016. And I have no doubt back then that he absolutely knew what he was doing and that he knew it was lying. My interaction with him was a man who was, to quote the Attorney General, detached from reality. This was somebody who actually believed in his own lie. And the idea of that surprised me, because the idea that the President of the United States of America could actually believe in something so irrational and still be the president is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, he's believed a lot of irrational things before this one, but this is the first time it's led to violence.
Absolutely. And also, it's the first time I've ever experienced it as well.
Sure.
And I think also in the context. I mean, the portrait of George Washington was on the wall looking down at him whilst we're conducting this interview. And it was extraordinary.
Are you participating in any other investigations into any other members of the Trump family, other that we have the obviously the hearing and the committee, and then we have the district attorney in Fulton County? There might be other investigations I don't even know about at the Justice Department or elsewhere.
So far, there's just 2 subpoenas.
Just 2, okay. Another one of the unaired clips that we obtained features Eric Trump, the president's second son, on the phone talking about his father's chances in Florida. Let's listen.
Hey, listen, you're in a good state that has a good governor and has a great lieutenant governor, and we love her, and you've got a great attorney general, and there's going to be no games in your state, which is nice. It's very different than some of them out there. So now you're very fortunate.
What was the context around that phone call?
So we had access to a private event. It was a sort of fundraising event in the Trump hotel that took place about a month or so before the election. As we were filming inside there, Eric had actually allowed us in. And so we were filming sort of what was going on. The Trump family were trying to raise money. It seemed that they were running out of cash. So they were sort of making phone calls to potential donors and trying to raise money. Bit of a tense situation during that day.
You've said that one of your takeaways from time spent with the former president is you think he doesn't really understand what democracy means. What has he said to you that led you to draw that conclusion, other than what we've witnessed for the last year and a half?
I mean, indeed. I mean, so when people hopefully watch the series, they'll see the types of things that the president at the time was trying to achieve. And I mean, he was saying things like that we need to find brave judges, and undermining sort of the judicial system, undermining the sanctity of the vote is obviously incredibly serious, and I don't think that leads to somebody who fully understands and appreciates what democracy is, which ultimately is to accept the result of the election.
Okay, and then finally, I want to ask you, because the docuseries leans into the idea that one of Trump's 3 oldest kids, Don Jr., Ivanka, or Eric, is going to take the reins from their father. After spending so much time with the family, do you think any of them are up for it?
I mean, I don't want to ruin the series for everybody. So, and I hope people come to their own conclusions. I mean, the film has its own suggestion as to who could potentially take over from Donald Trump. But I mean, they all have their own sort of eccentricities, let's say, and they all share different personalities with each other and also with their father as well. But I'll leave it to the audience to decide who is the potential successor of Donald Trump.
All right, interesting stuff. Alex Holder, thank you so much. And you can watch Unprecedented, which is streaming now on Discovery Plus. Again, that's our sister channel.